here with Bender.
And I'm here with Sydney, and this is BS Astrology.
What's up, y'all? We are in episode 14, April 7th through April 13th, and we are recording this on March 31st, starting at 4:35 p.m. Pacific Standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're a little behind you guys.
Yep. Reminder that all charts that we're going to put up on the screen, save for the full moon that's going to be happening, will be at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time chart. So you're going to want to adjust that. And we have everything showing in whole sign houses. Should be. Um, Gotta change that. Yeah, the whole sign houses in order to make it a little bit easier for people to just kind of place where things are. Do you want to give a rundown of kind of what we're going to expect for the week?
Yeah, so obviously by now we are out of eclipse season. We survived eclipse season, but the hits keep coming. Um, this is still going to feel like a little bit of a destabilizing week just because we have a lot going on right near the North Node. Uh,
Yeah.
Mercury, Saturn, and Venus, all within a degree of the North Node. Uh,
Yep.
Mercury is in Pisces, which is both in its detriment and fall.
Yeah. He doesn't like being there
Yeah.
at all.
And we talked about this before. That's definitely the mark of the poet and the artist, but not necessarily great for uh, concrete facts. uh, Venus does go direct this week, which is overall a good thing. We might not feel the effects of Venus finally moving forward again until after this week. It's going to hit direct and then slowly start that transition forward. But we can celebrate because at least it made it to direct this week. We also have a full moon in Libra this week. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think it's like, yeah, we've got Mars is still trining the North Node in Pisces. It's sextiling South Node in Virgo.
Yeah.
Um, the Mars Uranus sextile is still in play for this week. It's within 3 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
Uranus is within 1 degree of being trine the South Node. Man, the nodes are just being lit up this week.
Yeah. We're really getting like pushed in the path that the fates are trying to kind of push us into, right? Like, I don't think we have a lot of choice. I think we're in a very choiceless period of time.
Most folks I've been talking to lately, like not even people I'm having astrological conversations with, just general conversations, is people are just feeling like they're just being like pulled by an invisible force. Like they just
Yeah.
feel something happening to them and they don't have a lot of control over what is happening around them.
Yeah.
And also just to finish that up, we will have Jupiter squaring the nodes within 10 degrees.
Yeah. Using the evolutionary astrology rules. So this is like we are now entering a period of time where Jupiter skip step comes into play, and we'll have that North Node in Pisces as a resolution. But because Jupiter's so slow, this really is, I think, a fated time around Jupiterian things and what Jupiter signifies. And this is going to be holding for the next number of weeks to get there.
Yeah. So, and Jupiter, it's about expansion, it's about faith, it's about fortune. It has a tendency to just kind of like balloon anything it comes into contact with. So think about those kinds of themes when we're thinking about that Jupiter square to the nodes and like
And
sit
truth and a judicial system,
and
higher institutions of learning,
yeah. Uh,
mentorship, all sorts of stuff.
Religion, all those things can kind of come under the umbrella of Jupiter.
Yeah.
So definitely
Yeah.
be to that stuff, both macro and micro. Obviously, there's a lot of wild uh, religious and morality based conversations happening as far as like what our US government is doing right now. So definitely we should be paying attention to that. But like Sid said, when you're talking about squares to the nodes, this is definitely what they call a skip step in evolutionary astrology. I love learning about squares to the nodes because of that. So
It's definitely a time to deal with our dogma,
yeah.
right? Like all of the, and there's so many conversations right now happening around like the role of religion, especially inside of our country and our countries all everywhere, right? The notion of faith and how it operates. It'll be really interesting to see kind of what happens in terms of like government, and especially because they're in it's a really wide square, but Jupiter and Saturn being in a square. Um, and obviously Saturn is in Jupiter's sign. And Saturn in Pisces is being ruled by that Jupiter. So there's stuff there. But
It's gonna be wild, y'all.
yeah, I really don't think that we're going to feel like we're sitting on solid ground probably until May.
I was gonna say, I think May is when, because in case y'all are listening to this and you're just like, are these two just really dour, negative people? And like, I don't know, maybe we're Virgos, but but also it's really just like that's what this winter we knew that this winter was gonna be like this. Just really trash.
And we just have so much change. We're also in the most beginning parts of Neptune and Aries. And like when a planet goes into a sign, especially one of these big outer planets, they're so slow,
Mhm.
and we're just now having to get used to them. And because they're in very, you know, the 0 1, these are the anaretic spaces where everything is kind of revealing itself to us in terms of what Neptune is going to be unfolding
Mhm.
for us as a collective, what this next 14 years has to be dealing with. Thank God has to do with Aries, because, Mars is one of the quicker planets. So we're going to deal with different dignities of the ruler. But, I really don't think that we're going to get a footing in understanding until we get there.
I agree. Hold out till May. And we talked about it a little bit in last week's episode, but yeah, this is a great time to pay attention to any transits between your more personal planets and Neptune.
Yeah, if you have planets at the very really at the very first degree, 0 1 and 2 degrees of really anything, it is getting knocked by Neptune. And in really probably kind of some cool ways, if these are in fire signs, if these planets are in fire signs, if you have cardinal placements in the early degrees, you're getting squared, which can feel like a very confusing time, a disillusioning time. And then if you got any of the other ones, if you have air, that's a sextile, that's friendly. Um, and then if you have earth, it's not, it'll feel strange and probably a little unsettling and not really quite like it's fully formed yet.
Yeah. And yeah. So that's how those things are going to feel. That was a great rundown, Sid.
Thanks.
But yeah, just hold out till May. Like we said, like this is just a period of time where things are happening to us. It's a great time to just be journaling and paying attention to what's happening to you. Hopefully by late spring and summer,
Yeah.
we're gonna feel a little bit
So, oh,
with this
do
stuff.
you let's do Monday?
Yeah, let's start with Monday.
Okay, let me put the chart up again as a reminder. It's going to be the noon time. This is for April 7th, Monday, 12 p.m. Note the plethora of North Node movements here.
I see
We
awake right now. My goodness.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely are also, revisiting some old territory, with the ruler of the South Node also being with the North Node. We're kind of maybe reviewing some old promises, or, in a new way, in a in detriment, in poorly conditioned way, revisiting old story in a different way, in a new, different one. And Mercury in Pisces really is fucking different, you know? And then we also have the moon in Leo. Okay, take this off. Let's get into it.
Yeah, it's happening.
Um,
You guys don't
yeah,
remember last week we started with we ended with Moon being in Leo. Quick rundown: Moon in Leo is a very self-focused moon. It's about self-expression and creativity,
And
uh,
drama.
and drama, right? Because Leo's all about like performance art. So drama, it's all about me and what I want, right? And yeah, so that's where we've been at with Moon and Leo. And we kind of jump in with a little bit of discomfort with the Moon and Leo. 1:48 a.m. We're starting with a very minor moon sesqui square to Neptune and Aries. But again, every time we see these little transits to Neptune, it kind of makes my ears perk up a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's, the even that is they're both in fire signs, right?
Yeah.
So like I think it's for the discomfort that it could have, there's a bit less because we're just dealing with fire, and we do have Moon and Leo being ruled by the Aries sun, which is still exalted. So like I think that there's, just some stuff about the dream and the creativity and, potentially kind of wanting to be a king, you know? Aries and Leo, they want to be the king. Leo more than Aries. Aries wants to just, go off and be able to do whatever it wants to do, which can be in a king kind of way, but like Leo is definitely my
Leo's the one who wants the robes and wants the crown on and all
yeah.
that stuff. Wants everybody to know that they're the king. Where
Aries just needs the power to do what it needs to do, what it wants to do.
I kind of see it as like fun fighting between Leo and Aries, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, and
Um,
that's a pretty minor aspect, and it's probably going to be happening while we're sleeping. Uh,
mhm.
but
We at the very beginning of like our morning would say Monday, four in the four range, 4:01 and 4:07 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We have some pretty great news. We get Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces. So, this is the kind of solidifying and um, creating some sort of boundary, albeit flowing boundary with Venus and the promise that Venus has of her exalted state, being, I mean, she's retrograde, but we're revisiting something here around value and beauty and money and um the sorts of like I think about that hopeless romantic kind of vibe, and Venus and Saturn is like I would die for love.
I would die for love.
I would
Yeah,
die for love.
we've talked about contacts with Saturn before. We know that this is a little bit of a sobering aspect when you get anything coming onto Saturn like that. But yeah, there's definitely, with both of these signs being in Pisces, I'm with you. I think it's, yeah, tragic, tragic
Mhm.
romance, tragic beauty, kind of like seeing the beauty in tragedy, things like
Yeah, and I think this is the second to last time that they meet, right? Before they go into Aries, right? So this is where they're really in their like death throes,
that.
the
Yeah,
promises that they make.
right? We've been talking about, especially when we talked about Neptune last week, that shift from Pisces to Aries. That's always like the death of a cycle,
Yeah.
getting ready for the rebirth of a new cycle. So we're seeing
Yeah.
that
And
in
yes.
Saturn conjunction too. Yeah, it's the death throes. It's literally like Romeo, Juliet finding Romeo dead, and Juliet being like, "I'm gonna die too." It's that kind of vibe.
Yeah, the next time that they meet, we're not gonna see the next time that they meet will be in Pisces, the last time that they meet in Pisces. And that won't be until that'll be at the end of this month, April 24th. So this is the second to last time that they meet in the last sign. It's the farewell tour.
Definitely death rattles, right? It's not
Yeah, yeah.
last breath, but we're getting there. Um,
And then we have Mercury goes direct, which is great.
So I think
Yeah.
that's reinforcing this like tragic tale of this moment, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that I think is very interesting about the Mercury and Pisces going direct is that he's so close to finishing and perfecting this conjunction with Saturn, but he doesn't. He's like,
It's a
oh no, 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 no. He's like, I'm already in a bad place, okay? I'm already not doing great. I do not need to talk to the cold wall, and
Mhm.
I do not want this to be this serious, everlasting thing. I forgot a little bit of something, and I need to get out of here. I'm going back into Aries where I have a little bit more dignity and I'm able to like process a little bit quicker. I just had to pick this up. Like that's like kind of the vibe. Like,
It's like blue balling Saturn here.
yeah,
Which and it's fine because like Venus is picking up the slack there, right? It's like the Venus conjunct Saturn, and then immediately Mercury goes direct.
yeah. But I do think that there's a little bit of like a shift that there's stuff that feels probably pretty sobering in the morning, a little bit more about endings than beginnings here. And then, especially with the directness, because it's just so slow, right? And when Mercury uh, changes directions, he tends to like cause things to come up in whatever way, whether that's weird things with contracts or your car or, the internet or, just this stuff gets a little strange. So I just feel like we wake up in this kind of like stopped almost energy with Saturn being in play too.
When I see Mercury going direct, actually the thing that I think of is when something like when a machine gets like unexpectedly reset or restarted.
Hmm.
And then it
Yeah.
comes back on no problem, but all of a sudden like there's blinking lights and like all the settings got
Yeah.
it's like that kind of thing. And all of a sudden you're really disoriented and you're trying to find your way.
Yeah.
Machine.
But hopefully things will start to work a little bit better in everybody's life in terms of how we're processing, how we're thinking, how we're communicating, the sorts of things that we're getting into or technology, like all of that hopefully is, working a bit better.
If
Hopefully. I mean, there is that mutual reception between Jupiter and Gemini. So yeah. I-
I would just say, as with this is just general good rule of thumb with Mercury retrograde, whatever has been communicated about, whatever technological issues have come up in the last 3 weeks, there may be somewhat of a culmination point this morning.
yeah.
So pay attention to that and pay attention to how that might be continuing a story that you've been experiencing over the last several weeks.
Yeah. And then, 7:30 a.m., we do get a nice trine, a working trine between the moon and the sun. The void, of course, will begin with that trine, which is nice. It's like, okay, I have this new promise. Things are turning around for me. I can do this work. And then I think kind of the biggest thing happens mid-morning, 9:48 a.m. We get the Venus and Pisces sextile that Uranus.
Mhm.
It's fresh. She's fresh. Fresh new ideas, new old ideas.
Yeah, it's exciting. In the right
Yeah.
context, it can be a little slutty, like in a fun way. But
Yeah, yeah. I think I don't know. I like the sextile. I do think that there's something innovative here around things that are, beautiful and also sexy. I like the Pisces and Taurus together. It's a very sultry little slutty duo. I like them a lot.
uh,
Um, and then if we go into the rest of the day, right? We get some biquintiles and trines.
mhm. I don't know
And
that I'm gonna try and Chiron.
yeah, you know, she's interesting.
Mhm. Yeah. I feel like we're going back to talking about this conversation between Leo and Aries, right?
I think it has to do with ego, right? Some sort of healing wisdom, lessons
I think
integrated.
that example of like Leo wants to be the king and Aries just wants the power to get things done. I think that can sort of be applied to the conversation around this trine as well, right?
Yeah,
Healing ego. Um, it could
yeah.
even be something like maybe you didn't get to wear the crown this time, but you did get something done. you know.
Yeah, you did get something done. And you did maybe understand, or understand something. I hate using that word, but it's the moon,
Mhm,
right? We're able to emotionally integrate something around the healing that we need to do or that we are in actively working on that has to do with like our ego.
mhm,
Um, and one of the things that I've noticed through the eclipse season, especially with this last eclipse, is a lot of a lot of stuff around ego, a lot of stuff around pride, people just kind of popping off a little bit more than they should, and they're getting checked. That Leo. They need to get checked. That's the thing about Leo placements is often if they don't get checked and they're just running unbridled, they become a problem. But a checked Leo, an integrated Leo, is like so warm and
So warm.
so kind, open-hearted, generous, loyal. Like,
A truly evolved Leo understands that they are special and they deserve special things, but they are so aware of it that they're like, I want everybody to feel this way. I want
yeah,
everybody to know how special they are. I want everybody to know how valid they are.
yeah,
We kind of talked about that a little bit before. I think that feeds back into the Leo connections with inner child. Um,
mhm,
but yeah, I think
yeah,
there is a nice little opportunity with that trying to Chiron to it's like a gentle check, right?
yeah, definitely. I mean, they're both, dealing with kind of the Aries principle too, because Sun in Aries, being the Lord of the Moon, and you know, Chiron's exalted ruler is that Sun in Aries too. So, I mean, I mean, we always want flowing aspects to Chiron, right? Because then it's like Chiron offers the solve and not the wound. He
Exactly.
offers the wisdom and not the pain in that moment with the trines and sextiles. Um,
Never
and
know.
then
I like to think of like flowing aspects to Chiron as like those moments where something hits you and you have this really cathartic release and you might be crying or whatever, but it's like it feels so good. You're like, wow, something just like totally clicked in my head.
grace,
Finally release it, right?
it's like having grace,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
That's
grace upon you.
yeah.
So then, we go into the afternoon, not to talk about Monday too much, but we were like, I mean, we're just nerds. Um,
It's a lot of minor aspects through the afternoon and evening.
yeah, I think things really start working through. We're understanding what we're feeling. We're understanding how to work through those things. There's things about our desires and our internalization of like our needs kind of almost coming to like some sort of flow. But then we have Moon quincunx Saturn at 7:51 p.m. And this is a reality check. The moon in Leo doesn't want a reality check where it has to make an adjustment around its ego and how it plays and how it expresses itself. And Saturn is like, you have to.
Especially Saturn and Pisces, right? Saturn and Pisces is about everybody. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like, but what about me? Right? And Saturn and Pisces is definitely, yeah, it's definitely checking Leo on how does this affect everybody? How do your choices affect everybody? Kind of thing. Where
And
you're
then,
ego and not thinking from a place of compassion.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That moment says that there's like maybe a bit of anxiety or unchecked selfishness kind of coming up. And then 8:26 p.m. we have the moon in Leo square Uranus. Now, this feels like, the emotional outbursts, like me, and I want to survive, and this is my, these are my things, these are my toys, I own this, you know and it all just kind of gets blown to smithereens. This is a fixed square, it's so brief because it's the moon, so like yay briefness, but like we're going to bed not with our toys.
Right. And it's good that I like that you're using the concept of like toys and stuff, right? Because it's Uranus and Taurus, right? So it is about like my stuff. Uh
Mhm,
is or like my money, my stuff, this is mine. Uh
mhm.
yeah, and there's definitely a conflict happening between those two things. And that's kind of how we're ending out Monday. That's kind of what we're going to bed with. Is that it?
Yeah, 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 she's not great.
No,
um
you're like a natal moon in Leo. This week is going to start off for you with maybe a little bit of an ego check. And there will be opportunities for some nice integration.
yeah,
And there's also going to be a few different times. You might go to bed a little cranky that night.
yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's go into Tuesday. I will put up the chart. We have Tuesday, April 8th, 2025, 12 p.m. chart. And now we have the moon will be going into Virgo late morning, which I think is, I mean, moon in Virgo, not,
It's like mid-morning.
yeah, 6:39 a.m. The moon enters Virgo and the void, of course, ends. Um, I mean, we know about Virgo, right? So, like, after you can't take your toys with you
Mhm.
and you feel like you got slapped down by Papa Saturn, right? And you met up with grandfather, erratic Uranus, you have these kind of up, and then all of a sudden you're like anxious, like I fucked up and I didn't do
I just wanted to do it this way, and
it
I
right. It hurts and I
that is
can't
like the
keep
ultimate sign of just like a squashed ego. No
yeah,
question. It comes right after Leo, and it is the squashed ego. It is the place where we realize that we need to. It's what it talks about service to others with Virgo
analysis.
and
Yeah.
this yeah, it's mercurial, right? So it wants the facts. So yeah, I think it definitely it culminates into this moment of okay, it's not all about me. Now I need to figure out how to apply this information.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the for Tuesday and what was that?
Go ahead. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say for this Tuesday Virgo moon, we got her coming up and quincunxing with Neptune and Pluto. So with the vision, right? Going like, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And the same thing with Pluto. Now she's getting probably really critical, like really kind of like, let's get deep into it. But it doesn't feel comfortable. She's like, we have to make this adjustment. I need to get rid of this and plug this out. I have to eliminate all of this. Can feel pretty crisis-y, I think.
Virgo's like making the to-do list, right? And if you're a Virgo like I am and you make lists for everything, I tend to give myself anxiety with my own lists because
Mhm.
I'm a perfectionist, right? So I'm like, no, I have to get done every single thing on my list.
I love crossing out things on my list.
Yeah. And then sometimes you just make a list so big that you only cross out like two or three things out of a list of like 20, and you're like, oh, the day was a waste.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a caution for Tuesday in particular to fall into a well of self-criticism and
exactly.
feeling absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of work that you need to get done and having a preoccupation with trying to get everything done in a day. But this is not the day. Let me tell you what, with these aspects of the quincunx to Neptune, the quincunx to Pluto, and then in the afternoon, that sesame square to the sun in Aries, like we're not, like things are not going the way that you need to. And so I think we need to kind of dig into the earthy part of the moon, which is getting down to brass tacks of things. What is ultimately important?
Right.
What can you get rid of that leaves you with the essence of what is actually important to do today instead of that 20%, that 20 checklist? We're like, okay, I know I can only get two things done today. What are those things?
Mhm. Yeah.
Name them, do them.
Yeah. Because these are all minor aspects, right? It's that dodgeball feeling again, where it's just like constantly adjusting.
Yeah.
Virgo's actually pretty good at, right? Virgo's mutable.
She knows how to. She just got a tummy ache when she's doing it.
Got a tummy ache while she's doing it. And that's okay. Um, but yeah, I think that you put it really well. It's really just about making sure that you don't get caught in the overwhelm. I think it's also a great time to think about where you might be a little bit too detail oriented when you're thinking about we're talking about like a to-do list, right? Did you just like take one task and break it down into 20 tasks to make it feel more overwhelming for yourself? Because I've done that.
I do it so I feel more accomplished. When I like slam out like three things that really could have been one thing, I'm like, oh yeah, like it feels so nice. But also, like, I'm a Virgo rising, it works a little bit differently. Like, you know,
I'm an Aries rising, so I'm pissing off my own Virgo placements a lot. But one thing I have learned to do, and I think my Mars and Gemini helps with this, is that what's helped my to-do list anxiety is actually making sure to add things that I really want to do.
mhm,
Like have an ice cream bar,
with things that'll feel nice. Yeah,
you know. Yeah, like take a break and like watch an episode of a TV show you really like, and then I get to like cross that out.
yeah.
Yeah, all this to say, anyone with Virgo placements, or if you're getting hit by this moon in Virgo in any way, just yeah, take that advice. Don't be
Focus on the essence.
focus.
Be essential.
Put nice things on your to do list. But yeah, this isn't going to be a super productive day. It's all minor aspects.
Yeah.
So no major aspects that day, and then that brings us into Wednesday.
Yeah, let me put that chart up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely think Tuesday is like just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is Wednesday, April 9th. Now we have the moon is mid degrees for Virgo, which means that she is basically kind of, I don't know, this again, we have all minor aspects for Wednesday. So I think this is again more about, hmm?
You have one major aspect that day.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I just mean in terms of like the moon being able to get a ton done, we're again still in that place of maybe a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Really try to focus on your essential thing. Don't let your list get out of control. And your list might get out of control because at 4:14 p.m. we have the moon square Jupiter and Gemini, and this is not great. It's a couple hours long, but like Moon and Virgo, not in great condition, ruled by Mercury and Pisces. He's not in great condition. Jupiter in Gemini is in his detriment. This is too much.
Too much. And of course, we have Virgo and Gemini, which are the two mercurial signs. So just like with that square, it's just like excess of information. Talk
And
about,
trying to get stuff done.
yeah,
Yeah.
talking way too long of a to-do list. This is that aspect, right? Where you just like you make the list and you're like, there's no fucking way I'm ever gonna get all this done. And you're probably right. There's too much discomfort happening with the aspects today. Uh, it's a little bit of a chaos day, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's like feeling emotionally dysregulated.
Yeah.
Like you can't put your finger on how you're really feeling. And again, your tummy hurts. But
Mhm.
you don't know if it's fear, you don't know if it's anxiety, you don't know if it's excitement, which it very much could be. You're like, I don't know what this is, but I feel nervy.
And it also feels like, because you were talking about like get down to like pare it down to like what is essential. This could be a day where you actually have a really hard day knowing what is how to prioritize, right?
Mhm.
How do I pare it down? What is important?
Yeah.
I am terrible at prioritizing. So this is that day's probably gonna suck for me. But
Yeah. Yeah. And when we get to 6:06 p.m., we have the moon quincunx the sun, which really, this is our creative needs and identity are not jiving with our internal needs and habits. So we are feeling real not good. I think this is a really strange, like self-esteem
yeah,
thing.
I do too. And I was going to say, because we just talked about when you move from Leo to Virgo, it's like the squashing of the ego, right? So we've got Moon and Virgo now coming back to have contact with that Sun in Aries again. Uh,
Mhm.
and yeah, I definitely think there's like a self-esteem issue. It's like not,
Dragging its tail between its legs. It's like, oh, I went too far. I sun and Aries too far,
yeah, Sun in Aries too far.
too
Or
bright.
like you did. It could even be that you didn't actually, but you're just like feeling embarrassed, you're feeling exposed, you know?
Mhm. Or
Um,
took too much. When I think about exaltation, right, is like they have all of this privilege.
mhm,
And
mhm.
it's like, oh, I privileged too close to the sun. I did it too hot, too bright. And the moon and Virgo is like,
Abused my privilege, which Virgo is like, we have no privilege. Privilege doesn't exist.
right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then 7:27 p.m. we have a moon sesqui square Pluto, and this I think is a very deep, uncomfortable, unsettling, um, not able to come to a resolution sense of uh like frustration, but it's like that deep pit of your stomach frustration that
Like
causes,
like an
yeah,
examination.
yeah, and your brain is just like churning, 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 churning. You already have the moon in Virgo. She's overthinking everything. And then
Mhm.
you have Pluto. Contacts with Pluto just say everything, like depth and grossness and complexity.
It can be such a bad enabler for a moon in Virgo because Pluto is like, oh, all of this stuff you're overthinking, let me put meaning to all of it.
Yeah, and it's even worse than you think. It's even darker than
Exactly.
you think. Come to hell with
That
me.
bad. uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I would say like Tuesday and Wednesday. This is gonna be a little bit. This isn't like the best moment for Moon and Virgo, right? This
I
is
just think this week is, I don't know, like I already know what this week kind of holds for me. And I'm like, oh, of
yeah.
course, you know. Um,
The end.
yeah. Any final notes for Wednesday before we pop into Thursday?
No, I think that's a big thing. Moon and Virgo, it's not the best moment for it. It's Moon and Virgo is gonna, it's almost like too much opportunity for Moon and Virgo to do all of the things that Moon and Virgo
Yeah.
all access, right?
Yeah. Moon and Virgo, she has a checklist. She
Yeah.
has a checklist. She's trying to get it done. And in every single like bit of these last 2 days, she's like, really? Seriously? I like literally have this list.
Or they're getting added to the list, or you go to do a thing on your to-do list and it's just absolutely not going as planned, and then you can't check it off your to-do list, which is so
Or
infuriating.
you find that it's unnecessary, ultimately unnecessary, like which is the worst,
You
right? Like,
did a
oh, I didn't
whole
need to
ass
do that.
thing and you didn't have to do it, and you're like, all that time I wasted. All the time I wasted.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
tell we both have a lot of Virgo in our charts?
I just think it's like spinning wheels. Okay, so let's go into Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday, April 10th.
Mhm.
Oh, we have right at noon, we have the moon with the south node, which is, I didn't even notice that until looking at this chart right now. So, like, there's some destabilization happening because the moon is meeting that south node. There's some sort of like release around moon principles, whether that is women, mothering. Something's going on, and we have to let go something
Nurturing your
here.
habits too, you
Oh,
know.
health stuff. Yeah, body health. Virgo being a health thing
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
would definitely say with that South Node, there's something around health and maybe
Mhm.
self-care routines that may need to be addressed. If there's any little health issues that you've been avoiding, this can bring that up. Um, yeah, overall, like not super comfy with the moon being in the South Node. And of course, in the South Node, we're revisiting older stuff. Um,
And being asked to just like drop old criticisms and past pain and things around suffering and service and like the moon.
If any, it could be kind of after 2 days of just all that ruminating and all that Moon and Virgo just going to like excessive extremes. Maybe the
Yeah.
South Node is kind of like the bottoming out point, right? Where
She crashes out in the south node.
it's like, you know what? Fuck the to-do list. I'm done.
Well, I think you're right because let's talk about Thursday. So Thursday's main features really are these oppositions that she's going to have with Mercury and Saturn. She has them with Venus. So these are all these issues coming up right? A realization, a fruition, right? A boil around themes of service and sacrifice, the ways that we show up and we're like, I did this thing for you. And like Venus and Pisces is like, I didn't need that though. And you're like,
I didn't need it. Yeah. Also around like your work, your workplace, those kinds of things, it can definitely feel like I did all this work for you for nothing. Right.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And then we do have the moon trine Uranus, though, 8:17 a.m. So this can feel, emotionally inspiring. We have some new ideas and maybe we integrate a new habit, especially because Virgo is about habits, right?
yeah. Yep. Our habits and our routines.
Mhm.
So I think it's interesting when Moon and Virgo contacts Uranus. It's a nice flowing trine, which is good. But yeah, Uranus is all about like mixing things up and making things a little unpredictable. So it could.
And Virgo's like, I want predictable.
I know. I want the routine. Um, that's what I'm all about. So I do think that it could be a necessary change in routine. Again, like we've been there's a lot of Virgo stuff happening these couple days prior with that moon in Virgo, and it with everything going on in Pisces right now, there's just this fundamental opposition happening with anything
Mhm.
right now. So I think there is a balance that we're seeing that needs to be found um,
Yeah.
between matters of Virgo and matters of Pisces.
And considering that Venus and Saturn are in Pisces, these oppositions can be about like the ways that we show up in relationships
Yeah.
and the ways that what kind of goals we've been setting for ourselves that we hold inside of relationships and
Mhm.
also just in work and the type of work that we do and how, you know, we want everything to be, I think about that Pisces thing, like you want everything to be unified.
Mhm.
And Virgo is like, actually, some of it needs to get cold.
Yeah.
Like it needs to get,
Compartmentalize, right? Pisces has no boundaries. So Pisces is just like, it's all here. And Virgo's like, that needs to get organized because that's
yeah,
me, right? So I think it could definitely be about like getting a little grounded with some of these ethereal things that have been going on in our
yeah,
lives. Kind of bring some grounding to it, bring some routine to it.
yeah.
I think that Uranus trine could kind of be the impetus for that.
hmm
And
And I mean, considering that these are like basically this entire day, save for that very early morning moon quincunx Chiron, which most people will be asleep for, so I'm just ignoring it right now. These are all Ptolemaic aspects. I'm just ignoring certain things. I'm like, yeah, but
yeah.
like, but like, which is something that's a very Pisces thing to do. But when I think about like the trine and the oppositions and the sextiles and and all of this, these are working aspects. These kind of allow us to like take a step forward with some assistance and then something comes up and you're like, okay, now I have an awareness of this. Now I can move forward. So I think this is a big day of awareness.
Yeah. Big awareness day. Again, it's all moon contact. So we're talking about Virgo's relationship with these things. But yeah, it's awareness. Again, like finding balance when we've talked about oppositions in the past, it's important to remember that if your personal natal chart sits stronger on one side or the other, that side is more likely to win out. Uh,
hmm
so if you're practicing self-awareness, it might be really good to look at, what side needs to be strengthened a little bit. Where are you experiencing imbalances?
And then it's also just good to know where this axis is operating for this day and really kind of the days before, right? But there's so much happening on the Virgo Pisces axis. And so if you are a mutable ascendant, this is going to be in your most prominent areas of life, right? So this is going to be in the 1, 4, 7, and 10 axis, which is very apparent. It's very in front of your face. Like you can't do some of the Virgo things where this room is dirty, so I'm going to close the door. I'm going to just shove it under my bed. Now everything looks clean. You don't get to do that because the awareness comes up. Everybody else that, like, it's in the cadent or succeedant houses, they might have some sort of awareness of it coming up, but it possibly isn't really like thrown into the face. in the way that it will be for those of us who have equal risings. Fun. Great. I love that for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Sid, it's your first house. Woohoo. But we again
yeah,
kind of know what this week is bringing for you. So
for sure. For sure.
it is
Uh,
really, yeah. So
let's
that's
see.
I have a ton of Virgo in my chart, but it's
Mhm.
all depending on house system, it's like fifth or sixth. So
Well, and you've already been sitting with all of that Pisces energy opposing your Virgo energy. So you're already in it.
mhm.
So it's just like the moon comes and like says, "Hey, do you remember this? Hey, do you remember this?" Like you're already aware.
I've
It's
been
just, yeah, yeah.
honestly ever since the nodes shifted to Virgo and Pisces, I feel like I just like dove into it and have not come back up yet.
I
So,
got 18. Yeah, I'm dealing with a nodal square and it's in my first and seventh house. And I'm just like,
mhm,
the tension that I feel like exists inside of my body and my life right now. It's just really,
and speaking of like really slow moving outer planets, Neptune's been squaring my nodes for a hot minute, and I'm just like, God, I hate this. The nodes are hard. The nodes are really, really hard.
yeah, and there's so much data in them. And yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot. And especially when you have like nodal returns and nodal squares, like these are, life-changing moments.
Maybe we should maybe we'll do a special episode sometime about the nodes because the nodes
One
are
day, one day when we're not in the middle of life-changing change.
one day when the nodes are bashing us over the head.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds
Anyway,
great.
so that's
Let's
Thursday. It's a biggie. Uh,
but also 6:11 p.m. we have the moon entering Libra, and like we have spoken about, whenever we get a moon ingress, especially in fire or air, we get a interesting little moment with Neptune right away. So I don't think we the thing that's so fascinating about that is I keep thinking about it where I'm like, okay, so when it's in fire air, we don't get a pure entry, right? We get this like either diffused or like blown up, glorified entry point, which could be kind of dramatic. Honestly, Neptune in Aries, like I think it's going to be a very dramatic transit for us collectively. So I think it's just like meeting with the drama
yeah,
immediately.
I agree. Yeah, I think in these like beginning degrees, it's almost making me think of like lighting, lighting a bic or something like that, where it's doing like the thing and
Flamethrower.
yeah, kind of thing. Yeah, like doing the grenade kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's this very like woof kind of kind of moment as long as Neptune is sitting in those early degrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So when Moon enters Libra at 6:11 p.m. on Thursday, very as it enters Libra, it's going to make this opposition with Neptune, and that's going to
Yeah.
happen for a while every time Moon enters Libra, right?
And I think it's always going to exacerbate like the ideas of like our relationship to freedom and
Mhm.
just relationships, me versus you or me versus us. Like there's always going to be something here, the need to like be in some sort of communication, conversation, connection. And like Neptune and Aries is over there, like just glorifying like being alone,
Mhm.
so, being solitary, like going, striking out on its own way.
And I think it's a really interesting thinking about that in terms of the macro, uh, what's going on with us all collectively in terms of how we are relating to each other. Uh,
Mhm.
I don't know, something just like talk about like a little like spark in my brain about when you're talking about like glorifying being alone.
Mhm.
I think is a scary concept for the day and age that we're in right now. And I think
We're
it
realizing how alone we are.
realizing how alone we are and also that the government it's beneficial to those in power if we do feel alone and if we
Mhm.
feel connected to each other,
Yeah,
right?
it's a glamour. It's a lie. It's a falsehood.
It's
It's a
very
story. It's like lore, right? It's lore that it's better for you to like strike out on your own and not be in community and to be a lone wolf and to like be a soldier and
What I think is what I wonder with Aries moving through Neptune, I'm wondering if that it's going to actually start to do because that's a story that's been told to us for several generations now, right? The
I think
whole
it's going to start to be a story that gets deconstructed, right? Dissolve. Mhm.
yeah. And I think that's what we're going to find with Neptune in Aries is that story kind of we're going to start to see why that doesn't actually work, why that doesn't make sense, and why it's gotten us to where we are now, being
Yeah.
so isolated from each other. So, yeah,
And it can also this aspect alone can just create like just feeling confused, right? In that moment, confused. How do I connect?
yeah. How do I
How do
connect?
I connect with you?
Yeah, feeling a little not at odds with somebody in a confrontational way, but definitely in a way where it's like, I really don't know how to meet this moment with you.
Or I just can't see you, Neptune. Like I literally just I can't see you.
You'll be like physically separated from somebody, so yeah, so that's what's happening when Moon goes into Libra on Thursday. We have that immediate opposition to Neptune. And I think, we'll ride the ride together. I think we should definitely revisit this next time Libra enters or
Yeah, and see.
into Libra and see kind of how that's starting to pop off.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think that there's something about like whenever the moon enters Libra, once she's in the middle of Libra, she enters the path of fire, right? And so if she meets up with Neptune before that and like maybe doesn't get the right information, right? And then she goes on this dangerous journey, right? Trying to connect with the wrong types of people and like, go on the wrong types of adventure, I don't know. There's something to that story. I'll think about it more. I'll probably be in bed, like thinking about it tonight, but
Yeah, my brain's already started chewing on it. I'm also just thinking about, Libra being ruled by Venus and the idea of justice and our justice system, and how Venus can also be kind of a warmonger, you know.
yeah, especially when she's retrograde, and she is,
Mhm,
though she is, in a sign that she likes, and also Venus and Mars during this opposition, Venus and Mars, the rulers of these planets, are in a trine. They are still in a working, flowing trine. And so it's like this awareness around like the glamour
mhm,
allows us to like work together in a way,
mhm.
awareness and then work.
Yeah.
So,
It's
um,
can be working together in like not great ways. It just made me think of like Mean Girls, where it's like you got like Regina George and like all of the bitches and things like that. Sometimes I can be the Moon and Libra
uh, there's- all
vibe.
right. Friday.
Yeah, Friday the 11th. Uh, we are starting off. It's 1:30 in the morning, so it'll be
Hmm.
to whatever 4 a.m. for East Coast. It's going to be Moon in Libra trining Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees, and that's
Yeah.
how we're jumping into Friday.
There's the moon and Pluto hanging out. They're in a last quarter trine. So they're really able to kind of work to create like some sort of foundation. Um,
And it
and I
is
just,
so there is depth there, but it's air signs. So definitely a little bit more of like an intellectual depth rather than that like real, you know, bowels deep kind of depth that you can get where
I also think it just has to do with like social graces,
yeah. Hmm.
how people relate to each other in polite company. I mean, we have none of that right now in our society. And like the moon in Libra is like, can we all just behave?
Right. It's the judge with the mallet being like order is court, y'all.
Yeah.
um yeah, I think there's definitely things with that. Most of us will be sleeping at that time, so maybe we'll just be processing that concept of
Hmm.
uh, yeah, social graces and propriety, all that kind of stuff. And then
Yeah, it's such a slow, like, in terms of major aspects, there really is nothing on this day. And I'm looking at this chart again, and I'm thinking about the major aspects that the moon makes. And there's a translation here, right? The moon trines Pluto, and then it brings what it learns from Pluto into that trine with Jupiter later on. It's going to take a while to get to that trine with Pluto. It's literally the next morning, but it's like we went deep. So now that I can talk to you about,
right.
the wisdom and the lessons and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it'll be like going through that processing period through most of Friday. Friday is pretty quiet. There's a quintile to Mars at 10:02, and then at 2:30, there's a sesqui square to Uranus in Taurus.
Yeah. Let's talk about that Sesame Square because, like,
We were
it
talking
has to,
about
yeah, it has to do with Venusian things, right? And Venus in Pisces is like the ultimate, like, love, sacrifice, um, putting people up on pedestals.
highly romanticized, idealistic. uh,
hmm We can also feel very disillusioned, right? And we have Uranus and Taurus is disruptive. It's disrupting these stable places that have to do with value. And then the moon in Libra, is she in the path of fire yet? Hmm. Look. I don't know. She's not quite yet, but like she's entering, she's almost in very dangerous territory, but she's like, you know, ruled by that Venus that's still a Saturn, about the promises that she's made, how
Mhm.
she wants to behave, how she needs to behave. And like the moon in Libra is all about like behaving with fairness and balance, and Uranus and Taurus is like
It's gonna be
match it.
uphold that promise, right? I think it's gonna
Mhm.
be like challenging us. It's like, look, we made this promise, so we have to keep it because that's what's polite, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I just think, yeah, Uranus and Taurus fundamentally is interesting, right? Because it's like so unstable for like the most stable sign.
Yeah, and Venus is still sextile Uranus in this moment. So like she is able to have this pretty decent conversation. It's just the moon is not. So it's like,
Yeah. And like the moon is cardinal. So it feels almost a little like what's the word I'm looking for? Just like bossy, right? It's almost like this is how things should go.
I've never met a Libra placement that wasn't bossy.
Yeah, yep.
They're all bossy, all
Funny
of
man.
them.
Pop astrology does not get Libra at all. If you Google Libra, it's like, oh, Libra is a peacemaker and just like it tends to just like follow whatever everyone else is doing and tends to be a people pleaser. And I'm like, then you've never met a Libra.
Yeah. I think that, yeah. And like,
Easy to think that they're just going along with things when really they set the stage and you're actually following.
well, and I'm like, are you talking like that might just be when Venus is in Libra, but like when the moon is, like, she needs balance. She
Mhm.
needs harmony. She will be bossy to get it. Like 100%.
Yep.
100% sure. I've never met a Libra that was not that bossy.
I am a moon in Libra. And I am also very bossy. I also, even in work, my moon in Libra usually lands in the sixth house. So at work, I am usually a boss. And I really like curating spaces that are uh, that are harmonious for people. And then if people don't agree that it's harmonious, I get frustrated. I'm like,
And then your Virgo sets in.
and then I'm like,
I
it's
made it.
so, but yeah, Moon in Libra is bossy. It's a cardinal sign. It's a sign about connections with other people, but Libra wants to be making the calls on how we are relating to each other.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, Libra wants to be the curator of social events. So yeah, definitely
Yeah.
bossy for sure. Uh,
And I will say that something that is now inside of the forming range, we're within a 5-degree range of Pluto Mars opposition. So I think things are getting spicy, things are heating up, especially in how we're dealing with the promises and relationships relating to others. And we are now forming, we're now inside of a space where something going to come up. We're not there yet. Like this week feels like we're not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet. This is a developing story. Stay tuned. But
Hmm.
yeah, this is what's culminating. And again, I think with that, with Taurus in play, I think it's also about like our stuff, our resources,
Yeah.
especially if you think on a macro level with everything that's going on right now. I think Venus and all matters of Venus are going to have a lot to say about our resources and our
And
stuff.
about our money.
Yeah, and our money. I think
Yeah.
getting ready to enter pretty I don't know anybody who's not hard up on cash right now.
Yeah. I mean, and Venus is so close to Saturn, like she is limited. Like even though it's a conjunction, like it's still a conjunction. It's still a hard aspect with Saturn going like you are limited.
Yeah, even if you have the money right now, you can't be spending it for one reason or another. You probably can't be spending it, or you can see up ahead. You're like, oh, I can't spend this right now because
Yeah.
this is about to come up. So
Yeah. Well, let's move on to Saturdays because that is the full moon and that's when we get the whammies. So I am going to put up the full moon charts.
yeah.
Do, do. All right. So right before the full moon, it is worth noting that we get a moon in Libra, trine Jupiter and Gemini, which is a really lovely aspect,
Mhm.
in terms of kind of feeling kind of good. You got a lot of ideas around how you're going to get and the kind of conversations you would be wanting to, the types of information you're needing to be interacting.
I'm sad that it's this early in the morning. It's going to be at 4:35 a.m. Pacific time. And I am almost bummed because this could be a very social aspect. That's
Yeah.
Gemini. Definitely could be a great time to be chatting with folks, but I doubt with this timing that that's going to be happening for a lot of us.
Yeah. 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 So full moon though, 6:29 a.m. This is like the next aspect. And let's just kind of talk. I want to talk through some of the features that I noticed, because I think that they're really like the big players. Something of note is during this full moon, Venus is basically stationed. She will go direct later in the evening at 6:02 p.m. So we have, Venus is ruling over that moon in Libra, ruled by the Venus in Pisces, who is so stationary. She's so like, "Ugh," just holding on, man, before she goes direct. Um, but full moons are about awareness in general. Things come up, things come to light. We have full realizations around things. Being in Libra and Aries, this is definitely the relationship axis. Because we've had Venus with the North Node, we know that like relationships and fated relationships are at play. We have stuff around, making things more solid, more serious with the Venus connecting with Saturn. We do have the moon with Spica, which is interesting because I love that star. She can be a star of good luck. She can be, kind of bring good things to, so she's beneficial if not, because we have to deal with the full moon. But she's right in the sky with the moon in Libra. Venus and not Venus, sorry, the sun and Chiron are conjunct.
Woof.
But this is an awareness around pain. This is a light on our wound. And I think with that conjunction, there is a wisdom being offered to us through this awareness. I don't hate it. It's not a hard aspect. Mars is just outside of the range of being really intense in that square with Chiron, which we dealt with the week before. So I don't hate it, but I do think that this very much has to do with our wounds. This whole thing going on, and
With that full moon in Libra plus Sun in Aries, again, we're just going right back to relationships and how we relate to each other
yeah,
in terms of what kind of uh, wounds are coming to light. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Oh no, and then we have the flowing aspects between Mercury, Saturn, and Venus, all in that trine with Mars, right? So that is, awareness to work to get something done that pushes us into that north node of like, you know, compassion, sacrifice, um, unification, inspiration. This is really an awareness around how we're operating in relationships and being pushed to the north node. This is something that is awareness that is pushing us in that direction. So, do you see other things? There's always a billion things to see inside of a full moon chart, but
There's a billion things. I think that I just wanted to circle back to what you were saying about all of this Pisces North Node stuff. So when we're
yeah,
talking about Pisces and relationships, we're not talking about Libra style relationships with Pisces. We're talking about like our spiritual inclination toward relationships. I think there can be a lot of like karmic relationships that come up with this. Uh,
yeah,
like people who are in your life for a karmic reason or for a spiritual reason, or who you feel very deeply spiritually connected to, um, for better or worse, right? That doesn't
yeah.
mean it's like, we're not, this isn't some twin flame bullshit. This is, we're talking about like people come into our lives for fated reasons all the time. Sometimes it's people we really don't like, um,
Hmm.
or people that we have challenging relationships with. So that's kind of what's coming to mind with me with uh, that
Yeah.
and everything that's going on with Pisces and Virgo. Uh, and Virgo, because like God, like I think it's interesting that we have all this Venus crap going on, and then we've got Virgo on the South Node. Virgo and Venus have a complicated relationship. It definitely speaks to the ways in which we give to relationships, and then don't get don't get the same in return. Uh,
Hmm.
or whichever side of that you sit on. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's definitely like it's a little bit of like a heartbreaking day, right? Like it can be in a good way, but it's definitely a thing that brings heartbreak up.
Hmm. Well, so you mentioned that, and I went to the mansions of the moon.
Ooh.
So this moon falls into the 16th mansion, which is called Alzavana, which is also known as the claws, and it has the nature of Mars and Saturn. So we think again about cutting and ending,
Mhm.
right? And that Pisces stuff, right, is about endings.
Wow.
So yeah,
It
yeah.
really
I was
is
just like, what was that?
it really is a heartbreak day.
I think so. I think so. The keywords are he who counts, which I think is fascinating because they think about like Libra and money, counting the like sorts of social transactions, like who's one up, who's one down, kind of thing. The merchant, transactional. It also has to do with balance and wealth. And because there's like an awareness of like how we need to find balance here. And there is some sort of issue with balance here.
With
Um,
money, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Venus being in play and so close to the North Node, there has to be something going on with money at this time, I
Well, and
think.
on the macro level, right? We're having all these conversations about how billionaires are destroying the world because they are.
Yeah,
That's what happens when, well, there is extreme wealth imbalances and only a few people have all of the resources. It
yeah.
literally will destroy the world.
And we're still working within that economic square of Jupiter and Saturn. So, like, absolutely, I very much think that this has to do with maybe the resource, like the sort of conversations we have about resources with other countries. Certainly could probably have to do with like tariffs and all of that bullshit and the stock market. And, there's an instability again. We have to remember there's an instability about Venus, money, being with the North Node. When we have a planet with the North Node, we have an instability here. We would prefer it to be with the North Node rather than the South Node because it blows things up. It has the nature of Jupiter rather than the nature of Saturn, right? Stopping things, ceasing things, ending things. So we prefer it to be there, but we also have Venus with that. So no matter what, we still get a little bit of some stuff there that is kind of bringing us some economic hardship.
Yeah. And so, yeah, definitely be looking at your wallet during this time. But I think it's a really, especially with that full moon in Libra, and we're talking about um, the scales and justice and all of those things. I think this is going to be a really important day of kind of acknowledging the way that these greater economic patterns are directly impacting us, right? It's really easy to blame yourself. And we've certainly been conditioned to blame ourselves if we are not financially prospering. And I think the reality is that most of us are not financially prospering right now.
Yeah.
And that's not because of any of our own shortcomings. There is a fundamental injustice going on. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think,
And we do have that opposition with Mars and Pluto forming. So there's definitely, I think people are feeling pretty spicy about it all.
yeah, who don't you know who's working 50, 60 hours a week and is barely getting by? It's not fair.
That's real. And we also, for the most part, have a T square, right, with Mars. So it's sun, obviously the full moon, sun, moon, and then Mars is within 4 degrees, 3, 4 degrees of both of these planets. So this is definitely a T square. This is a cardinal T square. We're wanting to take some sort of action. We're being pushed to take some sort of action, to trying to find some sort of sense of stability in terms of like how we are living, honestly.
For a lot of us that, obviously not every single one of us is going to be able to like jump up and start a riot about it, but we'll see what the Mars Pluto thing does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the T square is maybe giving us a preview of that opposition. Moon Mars squares, she's spicy. She's
It's fighting.
emotionally fighty, like very dysregulated, definitely wants to lash out. And so I think there's a lash out energy kind of baked into this chart that it will be forming more in the
It's a cardinal square, right? Yeah. Yeah. Moon square Mars and Cancer. Yeah. So it's a cardinal square. Yeah. It is right out there in the open. Yeah.
yeah.
I think this is going to be a confrontational day.
Yeah, she's juicy. She's a juicy full moon. Um, and then again, like we said at the top of this, 6:02 p.m. Venus and Pisces goes direct. So wonderful thing. She gained some dignity by going direct. She's no longer retrograde. Now she's in her exaltation. She's going over old territory, but I think she knows what to do here. She's back to being a bit cozy. She's now going to be working to separate from Saturn. She's like, get away. It really feels like some sort of weird shift happens with the market on this day.
I think so. I really do. That's what I was.
So we should check back in with, we need to put a pin in it. We need to write it down on a note,
Mhm.
see
We need
what's
to
up.
start doing that with a lot of the things that we're saying, but yeah, um, I do think there could be a shift in the market. Uh, how extreme it'll be, who knows? Because the hits just keep coming. But I do think there's going to be a shift in the market, and again, I think that's going to hit a lot of people very personally, especially people who might be invested in the stock market, right?
Mhm.
It's not me, but
Well, and there's that quincunx, the moon in Libra, quincunx Venus in Pisces. So that's going to happen 8 p.m. And then we have the moon quincunx Uranus, which is some sort of shock. you know, these very feeling very destabilized, and Uranus has to do is in Taurus. It has to do with our resources, it has to do with our sense of stability. So that, and also Uranus is used in stock market predictions. So I'd be interested to see what happens there. Um, and then we get that final, like we get the whammy square. We get the full square of Moon and Libra square Mars and Cancer. So it's just a few hours after the full moon in the evening. That is a closing aspect of the day. And she's angry.
Just angry, and I think it's just reinforcing all the stuff we were just talking about with the rest of this day. We're talking about Mars and Cancer, so it's about how do I protect me and my own. How do I protect my property, right? And yeah, I think Moon and Libra is
Has a mind to share, but it can't.
yeah.
Feeling limited. Venus is with Saturn.
It could even be like just having to make like a shitty decision about like I want to help, but I have to look out for me right now,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Not
the one thing I'll say is it's a full moon day, so there is going to be a lot of awareness. And there's I and with Venus, I see some bright spots in this Saturday, and not necessarily that it's going to feel good on that day, but I think it is going to bring some clarity. And
we
it's
know things.
yeah,
We are aware. We this comes to light. The boil comes up around our relationships, both like in our country and in interpersonal.
nothing's hidden from us on this day, right? So we know exactly what's going on. Venus and Pisces is going to go direct and is going to start making that crawl forward. So we do see that path forward. But it on the day of, it's going to feel uncomfortable and perhaps even enraging. And that's what Saturday is, which will bring us into Sunday. Unless you have anything else,
Yeah. No, no. I think we can. I think we can leave that. I think there's a lot to chew on there. I mean, I think we could possibly talk about the full
pay
moon
attention.
for a fucking hour.
Pay
You
attention.
know,
Wait, what'd you say?
I was like, I'm pretty sure that if we really wanted to, we could talk about the full moon chart for like an hour, but like let's move on. Like all we need to know is we're becoming aware of things. We need to we need to not worry. That was a very Virgo word. We need to be very aware of how we feel pushed to use our anger and our drive, especially on this day. I think some people are going to be feeling really wiped out.
Yeah.
And I think other people are going to be feeling very, very pushed, like to the limit.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think
For
I think there could be a lot of situations on this day where somebody like in like an act of desperation, somebody's going to try to exercise control over a situation and it's not gonna go over well. Uh, that kind of stuff. It's just gonna
it
be
kind of feels like a crash out.
yeah, yeah.
I'm crashing out, man.
And think about it, like we started out the week with all this crappy Moon and Virgo stuff where we already burned ourselves out on the to-do list. And now we get to the full moon and we're just like, I can't cope anymore. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot. Um,
So
yeah.
let's get into Sunday and then we'll wrap this puppy up.
Mhm.
Okay, so Sunday. This day is important. And the reason why I put a note, because I was like, oh my God, maybe we have a little bit of a breath out that feels good and collected. All the planets are direct until May 3rd. And on May 3rd, that's when Pluto will go uh, backwards for a bit. And then it actually is like the first of like a series of outer planets going retrograde, unfortunately. But for now, for a month, almost a month, we have this beautiful direct action. We are moving forward. That awareness from yesterday, we are aware of what we have to work with, and we are now all going in one direction forward. I love it.
Yeah. There's it like we just talked about with that full moon in Libra, there is this awareness. And then Venus goes direct and we're like, all right, let's do it. Um, so yeah, everything's gonna be direct. So I think we will get this little breath of fresh air where it's like, okay, move all you can. Like
Yeah.
it's like red light, green light, right?
Quick, quick, fucking
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Squid Game,
Yeah.
red light, green light kind of vibes. Uh,
Yeah. But at I think it's 6:44. Oh, it's 6:54 a.m. Sorry, I had a typo on there. Um, we do get the moon entering Scorpio. So now Like where Moon in Libra, she has a need to like connect. Moon in Scorpio needs to crawl inside of your skin. And there's just
Necessarily want to ask, like Libra will ask consent. Scorpio will not. It'll just
right. And whenever I think about Moon in Scorpio, there's just like such an intensity of feeling. So it's like really apropos that it comes after
Mhm.
this full moon, where it's like now it's just like plunged into the depths to kind of like literally pull out the gut and like look at everything and deal with like the elimination stuff that has to come up at this time. And there's like so much churning.
And we have a better idea of what we need to eliminate, right? Because we got all that awareness the day before. So Scorpio, there's a focus to this moon in Scorpio where it's
Yeah.
not just like pulling out the guts haphazardly. It's like, no, I know exactly what needs to go now, and I'm gonna fucking get rid of it. We're done.
Definitely an intensity. We have to remember too, Moon and Scorpio, no matter what, that's an emotional intensity that we
Yep.
and will potentially be behaving a little bit better than we expect because the ruler, Mars, is in Cancer. So there's a mutual reception here. They're like, yeah, trying to scissor with each other. They're like, I know how to make this work. Uh, but, this could mean that there's a little bit more strategy around how this is behaving, right? But there's still, I don't know, there's still intensity. Like a Mars and Scorpio is intense, right? Like they're precise. And a moon in Cancer is still emotional. So this is still emotional. There is an intensity. There's some cool biquintiles with Venus and Saturn, which I think will kind of cool it down a little bit. Um, and those quintiles happen at 9:24 a.m. and 9:28 with biquintile to Venus and then a biquintile to Saturn, both of those planets being in Pisces. So there's water. There's like an intuition here.
Just because a little later, then there's also the biquintile to Mercury and Pisces. So yeah,
Yeah. It's like it can like actually talk about and emote about this complexity. Like Mercury and Pisces actually has the skill set that moon in Scorpio needs.
where Mercury and Pisces shines, right? Where Scorpio is like, I'm having a bunch of feelings, and Mercury and Pisces is like, let me write it down.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that
Yeah.
yeah. So there is that is nice is that there is a lot happening between Pisces and Scorpio on this day. They're minor aspects, but there's definitely like an invitation to kind of be in the depth of our feelings on this day.
And just so intuitive.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
Scorpio is intuitive, like so intuitive. And Pisces is almost
In a
psychic.
very violating kind of way, but yeah.
Yeah. And then Pisces has that kind of psychic flowing, like being able to touch the ether of things and like pull in data. So like I think that there's a knowing that happens on this day. Um, and not to say that we do not hit a hard crisis point because we do have that moon in Scorpio square Pluto in Aquarius. This is a closing square. This is the crisis. This is emotional crisis.
Yeah,
Just
totally.
intense as shit.
Yeah, honestly, the week is gonna end tough. It almost like I feel like this week it kind of like there's a lot of that like burnout and frustration at the beginning, but it all just really culminates to like a really hard weekend. Where just a lot of stuff comes up and then we have to process it. And that's where we come to that moon in Scorpio squaring Pluto and Aquarius. Um,
Yeah.
and I can even see that as uh, trying to process the bigger picture of why things might not feel good or why things might be going wrong or whatever it is
Mm.
you're dealing with in your life. I think thinking with that Pluto and Aquarius, we're thinking about the bigger picture of how does this impact all of us or like yeah
Mhm.
what has led to this thing that we're all kind of collectively experiencing, right?
Yeah. I like how you say that too, because we have that emotional crisis point, and then at 7:41, we have the moon by quintile Neptune. So they have both the moon in Scorpio and Neptune in Aries traditionally would have the same ruler that Mars in Cancer. And I think that there's something about like now it really knows it has this strategy around the dream.
Yeah. Hmm.
It really has this like, and Aries is also very intuitive in a different kind of way. It's like a spark.
It needs that intuition to be able to move forward, right? And
Yeah.
it's definitely, it's not the kind of thing when you're talking about Scorpio intuition, you're talking about how it wants to like dig deep and bring up every single thing. Aries is like, I need to know, I need to have just enough intuition to know that this is the right direction to go in.
Yeah.
And can use and can hone that and use it very powerfully. So yeah, again, yeah, you're right. That biquintile, it's almost like reinforcing that story that's coming up this weekend of like, we're honing it, we have the realization, we're honing in on how to move forward. And again,
And then,
this day, all planets are direct, so that's really important. Like that's really important energy that we have that we're trying to move forward with.
yeah. And then the very last aspect that we have for Sunday is like, I think it's karma. It's just karma.
Yeah. We were talking, Sid and I were talking about this before we started filming. And I was talking about how this is like a shit or get off the pot kind of aspect, right? With Saturn conjunct the North Node in Pisces. Uh,
Yeah.
and you know, I was thinking about it after we talked about it
Yeah.
when we started filming because it brought me back to what we talked about this week. I think it was with that it was something with oh, it was yeah, it was Pisces conjunct the North Node. It was Venus and Pisces conjunct the North Node. And we were talking about how we make a vow during
Mhm.
that time, right? And something it feels like it's coming back to that vow a little bit with the Saturn,
Mhm.
the North Node and Pisces. When Saturn
Yeah.
the nodes, it's really asking you, do you have your shit together to move forward? Uh, and it's kind of like, are you keeping this vow? Do you have
Yeah.
what to keep your vows? Right.
Yeah. This is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Now we move forward with the goal, the promise, the vow that you set. And it is karmic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is not up to you.
Right.
This has to do with finishing up, right? This is endings to go forward.
It's
Hmm?
not up to you, but the choices you make, you do have control over. And that's what's great about astrology, right? Is like we can have this self-awareness. We're going to be getting pulled in this tide of whatever karmic energy it's bringing. But I think it's really important that we're clear that this aspect is there so that we know how to respond and hopefully respond with our highest selves.
Right. And when we think about Saturn, right, it's like you you really do reap what you sow. How hard you work, the ways that you try to master yourself and the goals that you set can pay off in this moment. If you've behaved well, if you've lived well, Kimosabi, right? Like
Exactly.
if you've done the work, now we can move forward. Now is the time for this ship to really take off. I think it's this meeting point of destiny.
I agree. And yeah,
So,
and that's the thing that we don't talk about enough with Saturn because we all get really dour when we're talking about Saturn. And it's true that you have to work really fucking hard to reap the rewards of Saturn. But if you do put that work in, you will reap rewards from Saturn. And I do think this is one of those aspects where you will see that. If you have not been putting in the work, this is one of those aspects that's going to kick you in the ass. And you're going to become
yeah,
aware of what you have not been working on. Right.
yeah.
I think that's the big like it's one way or the other with Saturn.
Mhm.
It's going to be either a kick in the pants to help propel you forward, or it's going to be a kick in the pants that sends you on your face. Um,
It's also a test, right? Because like Saturn can be a test, a limit, a boundary being kind of placed there for you to like work with. And if you are doing your Saturn, wherever, whatever sign your Saturn is, it offers both lessons. And if you learn those lessons, it offers you mastery and maturity. Saturn is the crone. She is mature at the end of the day. And so it's like this maturity to go forward. And also, we're dealing with endings, right? Pisces stuff. So she's finally mature. This is like a full maturation point, potentially. or as mature as we're going to get for this cycle. Well, actually, I think that's probably a little bit more reasonable to say, because it's not that like Saturn's in the best, condition and all of that stuff, but like we are
It's getting,
reaching a peak maturation point.
yeah, and Saturn is getting ready to change signs. So definitely, uh, when is it changing signs? May?
Yeah, something like that. And then he literally loses everything.
Yeah.
He's just he's just like
It's
in his fall.
Pisces. Wait till it's an Aries. But
It's gonna
but
be a spicy time.
it's gonna be spicy. But anyway, yeah. So and I think particularly since we're talking about the sign of Pisces, uh, in terms of, if this is a day where a boundary is put on you, or you are presented with an obstacle and you're aware of this, that this transit is happening on this day.
Mhm.
I think Pisces is actually kind of a gift where if you can embody the qualities of Pisces and sort of surrender and go with the flow of things and don't try to push past the obstacle and rather be curious and observe the obstacle as mutable signs can be good at doing, I think that will be helpful, right? Uh, I think that getting frustrated and trying to fight against obstacles on this day is not going to be in your best interest.
Well, and also like the really cool thing too is that we still have that working aspect with Mars. It's separating, but like he knows what to do. He's been working with it. And even more importantly, he has that even closer is that sextile to Uranus that just happened too. So he can do things in a new way. There's some innovation. There is some spark of newness here offered. So, you know, is it the best aspect? No. But there's something like solidifying. It's like chaos, 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 anger, frustration, tummy is hurt, and then like, okay, now we are moving forward. All the planets are direct.
Uh-huh.
Saturn met the North Node and said, "This is the work we're doing now.
Mhm.
Ooh, let's fucking go."
Yeah, I think this is, it's a conjunction. So as far as like, is it the best or is it the worst? I think it super depends on your chart with this particular aspect.
Agreed.
Uh,
Agreed.
if
I,
you're highly Saturnian, maybe this will feel really empowering. Or if you, yeah, I think there are ways in which it can feel
this is like a degree away from my descendant
empowering.
and square my nodes.
How do you feel about that?
Uh, it's I'm fascinated by it. I'm just very fascinated by it. Huh?
We talked about descendant transits before, and sometimes that can affect not you, but like the closest people around you.
Yeah, and I mean, when you have Saturn conjuncting your descendant, there can be a like, this is when you get really real about the next step of your relationship,
Yeah.
right? So whether it's a you cut it out or it's like, no, we're taking the next step together, right? And like for us, it's we're about to move and be actively on a lease together and build a space together that literally is a build-a-bear of space. Like, so we're taking on a new project together,
Yeah.
right? Um, so that's like, it's very much a serious thing because it has to do with our goals moving forward, like literally both of our goals going forward.
But
So
I
it
think
makes sense.
that's the most perfect example of why this can actually feel like a really good empowering transit because, and this is what we were talking about before. This is the way that I put it into a context that makes it feel more pleasant, I guess, is I've
Yeah.
seen so many synastry charts, Saturn conjuncting the nodes, like so many of, specifically with like marriages and
Mhm.
people who have been in business partnerships for a long time, best friends, right? This is a contact and synastry between two people that
This is serious business.
serious, right? But when we think about like when we think about like Pisces, right? Like, what do we ideally want in a relationship, or at least traditionally, what do we ideally want in a relationship? We want the relationships that are going to last. We want the person we're going to grow old
Mhm.
with. We want that person who we can have a shared life with. And
100%.
when you see Saturn conjuncting the nodes in relationship charts, you see that it does have that staying power. Now the flip side is, obviously, if you want a lifelong relationship, it gets hard, right?
Yeah. You would want it to be with the North Node rather than the South Node, just so you know, because then, just to like for our audience, like you don't want the destabilization of like, it's
That'll make it
destabilizing Saturn.
stuck in place, and like, yeah, that one can suck. But Saturn conjunct the North Node specifically means that you have shared goals. And that also means that you're committing to a lifetime with that person through thick and thin, through better or worse. Um,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's why I like the idea of this. It definitely feels like vows again.
Feels like we put a button on the day, and on the Sunday. I feel like this week is a lot, and
What?
we should probably wrap up. We talked for a really long time for this one.
This was a long one. This was a long.
Yeah. So as a reminder, schedule with us, and yeah, we're every week, and hopefully we'll be in person soon. A lot of life-changing stuff going on right now, and I'll put up the screen to have you all get in contact with us. And thanks for hanging out. Don't forget to like this freaking thing and encourage your friends to put it on in the background while they clean their house.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Thanks.
it. Hang in there. May.
Bye.